as we gather this day to celebrate the life, the ministry, the movement of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, let us begin in prayer. Holy God, this day we lift every voice in thanksgiving for not just a man, but a dream. And not just a dream, but a movement. The history of this world is one full of division and fear, yet you came to us, claiming us all to be one flock under one shepherd. You showed us a way of unconditional love that casts no one out. And even after your death, you raised up among us saints and prophets who continue to point us toward your kingdom. O loving God, we confess that we are not always up to the task at hand. Some days we are too tired of the injustices of this world to act. Some days we are too ignorant of our own privileges and ashamed of our own sins to reach out in compassion. Yet we must march on. We ask that you give us strength and courage to keep the movement of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. alive in our own day, on our own streets, in our own homes, and in our own hearts. Keep alive our hope for transformation. In the name of the loving, liberating, and life-giving God, your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
If you would please stand for the Negro National Anthem.
Let our Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Indeed, it is a pleasure to be here today and to be amongst the living, as they say. So I had to make sure I had some live people out there today. We thank Father Morrison for that wonderful and soul-stirring prayer. And thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, for that beautiful selection of Lift Every Voice and Sing. I have the pleasure of introducing our MC for today's program. And some of you may feel as I do, that you already know her, because she is one of the first faces you see on television most mornings. Our MC is a morning meteorologist reporter at WTOK TV 11 News in Meridian, Mississippi, where she joined the team in 2021. She received her meteorology, degree from Northern Illinois University, and she earned the designation of Certified Broadcast Meteorologist from the American Meteorological Society in 2010. If you're up early in the morning, you can catch her weather forecast each weekday from 5 to 7 a.m. on Good Morning Meridian. As I have observed her presenting the weather, she seems very passionate and knowledgeable about the variations in the weather, and she always seems to make her presentations with a smile. She is married to Abraham McKenzie Jr., who is a detective with the Jones County Sheriff's Department, and he also serves as an assistant pastor at Oak Grove Baptist Church near Laurel, Mississippi. Thank you, Pastor McKenzie, for being here today in support of your wife and our program. Now, without further ado, I would like to present to some and introduce to others our MC for today's program, Mrs. Deetra McKenzie.
Such a nice introduction. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to serve as MC for this amazing event. Again, shout out to my wonderful husband who brought me to Mississippi. And I'm honored to be here. It's a wonderful place. And I'm honored to be here today because, of course, we're here for an important purpose. First of all, I just found out when I got here that we weren't able to come together like this for the past couple of years because of COVID, I believe since 2019. So what a privilege it is for one to come back and be together in honor of Dr. King, even though we're masked up a bit, but still we get to fellowship. So that's a great thing. And again, we're here in honor of the amazing man, the man with a dream, and a dream we're still trying to fulfill, but it's a progress, right? A work in progress. So let's go ahead and get into the program. I'm so excited to get things started. So first we're going to have the welcome by Dr. Thomas Hubert, the president of this great institution of higher learning. So give him a round of applause.
Thank you. I guess it has been a while since we've been here in this kind of a celebration, and so it really is good to see you all. It feels a little unusual getting into crowds, doesn't it? Just a little bit. I look forward to this event every year, and there are many reasons. It's always good to invite people to campus, and I see so many people who come to campus for this particular event, and it's always great to see them and to give them a hug or a high five or an elbow or whatever it is we do these days. There's value, of course, in remembering the life of a man who led such an important movement. And I think it's important to recognize the landmarks in our nation's history and celebrate how far we've come, how far we have to go, the value of those landmarks. But the main reason I look forward to this event every year is because it is a reminder of my why. I'm challenged by the images, the stories, the speakers, the students. I'm reminded that we're not even a generation away from a struggle to validate the very Constitution on which our country was founded. I'm reminded that while we've come a long way, we have so far to go. And I'm reminded that what we do here at Meridian Community College absolutely matters. I want to be the place where people find out who they were created to be. Find the people who will encourage them on that journey and give those students the tools to move forward and transform. Those ideas are easy to talk about, but they're hard to do. Our challenge, my challenge, as a leader is to help create forward momentum, to help us as a community remember and live the words of Dr. King, to be positive change within so often the context of a difficult, hostile, and bitter political environment. At the end of this special event, we're going to sing, "We Shall Overcome." Overcoming is about a deliberate decision on the part of all of us to move forward, to be different, and to create an environment where overcoming is just what we do. We're all familiar with the quotation from Dr. King that says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that." But we often forget the next part. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. As a community, let us embrace each other, celebrate this opportunity to be the shining example of brotherhood and sisterhood envisioned so strongly by Dr. King. Welcome.
All right, some great words there. Thank you so much, Dr. Hubner. So next up, we're going to have the introduction of the speaker. That's going to take place by Patrick Martin, and then after his voice, the next voice you will hear will be our amazing speaker. So let's go ahead and give Patrick Martin a round of applause.
Good afternoon. I've been asked to introduce our speaker today. Samika C. Thomas is a native of Okolona, Mississippi. She graduated valedictorian of her class from Okolona High School in 1999. From there, she went on to University of Mississippi in Oxford, where she received a Bachelor's of Arts in History in 2003. After obtaining her BA, Judge Thomas went on to receive her law degree at the University of Mississippi School of Law in December of 2005. Judge Thomas holds a law license in Mississippi and Tennessee. She currently has a law practice in downtown Okolona, where she specializes in domestic relations such as divorce, child custody and support, and guardianship, as well as criminal defense. Judge Thomas has a passion for helping others, especially children, and believes in treating everyone fairly. Judge Thomas has made history by becoming the first African-American female judge in the cities of Okolona and Verona in 2013 and 2016, respectively. Judge Thomas made history once again in 2019 by becoming the first African-American to be appointed youth court judge for the county of Chickasaw. Judge Thomas is committed to serving her community. She currently serves as the Vice President of the Okolona Chamber of Commerce and the President of the Upsilon Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in Starkville, Mississippi. Judge Thomas believes that her calling in life is to serve. Please help me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Miss Judge Samika C. Thomas. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you to the committee for inviting me to come and speak. I always find it a pleasure to get out and be around people, especially during this pandemic when we've all been so shut up in the house. To the president of this fine institution, thank you for allowing me to speak. To the faculty, staff, and students, I hope I'll say something today that will resonate with you. Also, I want to give a special thank you to my sorority sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. They surprised me by showing up today with a bouquet of flowers, so thank you ladies so much for that. I have the best sorority sisters in the world, y'all. Now, we always like to talk about Dr. King and how he helped change the world. Absolutely true. What we don't often reflect on is what it took to get to that point. What it took to get to the point where he was speaking about a dream he had on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. How did he get to that point? Your theme, don't be silent about what is important, underscores Dr. King's legacy. It underscores what it's all about. He decided that he couldn't sit back and be quiet about issues affecting his community. It started out so simply. He heard about a meeting that was going on to talk about the unfair treatment of African Americans with the Montgomery bus system. That's all. He just was going to see what was going on and how he could help. He didn't go to the meeting and saying, I'm going to be president. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the lead. No, he simply went as a concerned citizen. But the mantle of leadership was thrust upon him, and boy, did he rise to the occasion. When he went, he was just going to see what was going on. But like I said, that mantle of leadership was thrust upon him. If we truly want to live out Dr. King's legacy and truly fulfill his dream, which was equality for all, then we must decide for ourselves about what we think is important. What's gonna make us move? What will it take for us not to be silent? Let's take a look at the definition of important. Important means something of value, something significant to someone. I think we can mostly all agree that our families are important to us. And I don't just mean the family that you're born into. Sometimes your friends become your family. Sometimes your work colleagues become your family. Sometimes those people become important to you. We all have at least one person in our lives that we consider important. Now, Dr. King had a family he was born into, a family that he created with his wife, Coretta, and a family of all the brothers and sisters that he considered in the United States. That definition of family extended to complete strangers. So his definition of family was the family he was born into, the family he created, and the family he took in. That was the wonderful thing about Dr. King. He placed value on a person, not because of what they could do for him or what he could do for them. He placed value on them simply because they existed, simply because he said that all of God's children are important. Dr. King knew that it was his duty to help out his brothers and sisters. It was simply because he believed God commanded all of us to love our neighbors as ourselves. So if it's important to you, you won't be silent, right? Silence means not to speak, to refrain from noise. Imagine if Dr. King had said, I'm silent. I'm not gonna speak. It's not my place to speak. Imagine if he had said, I'm not gonna make any noise. I'm not gonna make any waves. Where would the world be? Dr. King placed this value on complete strangers because he could not, he refused to stay silent in the face of injustice. The Montgomery bus boycott was simply the spark that lit the flame for the rest of his life. When the boycott ended, he didn't stop there. He knew there was more work to be done. He set out on a path that would ultimately cost him his life. Dr. King could have stayed silent, could have stepped back from the movement, and lived out his life with his wife and children. The path he set out would cost him his life, but he knew what he was doing was dangerous. But yet instead, he refrained from being silent. He made noise. He made waves. Dr. King believed that to be silent in the face of injustice and wrongdoing was just as bad as actually perpetrating the wrongdoing. He said, quote, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. He believed that if we didn't stand up for our friends, then we were just as bad as the ones trying to hurt them. Imagine that. Imagine you are being hurt, abused, discriminated against, and plain old mistreated, and your friends, the people who are by your side, who say they love you, refuse to step up for you, refuse to even speak out for you. They continue to let this harm come to you. How would you feel? That was Dr. King's point. You're not a friend. You can't say you love me if you stand by and watch me being hurt, if you stand by and watch me being abused. You can't stay silent and say you love me, because silence is consent. If you're being silent, that says, I agree with what they're doing. I don't think it's wrong. Now, we all have those friends who tell us in private, oh, I think that's wrong. You know, they shouldn't be doing that, but I can't say anything. Why? Oh, you know, people may look at me differently. I may lose my reputation in the community. Oh, I don't want to lose my job. Yeah, I know they're mistreating you. What they're doing is not right, but you know, I can't say anything because I have a family. Dr. King had a family. He had a family. Now, how many of us are willing to get uncomfortable, because that's what it's going to take? How many of us are willing to get uncomfortable and speak out when we see wrong being perpetrated? Now, we all say we will, but will you? That's only a question that you can answer. Once again, Dr. King believed if you didn't stand up for your friends, then we were just as bad as the people discriminating against them. People say, it's not my fight. It's not my business. That can't happen here. Well, what they're doing is wrong, and yes, I'm your friend, but once again, I can't say anything. I'll help you in the background, but I can't say anything. That's not love. That's not friendship. Silence in the face of oppression is simply silence. Dr. King said, history would remember those who stood idly by and watched people being mistreated and did nothing to try and stop it. All throughout history, there have been those who sat idly by and watched atrocities happening. Slavery, the Holocaust, Jim Crow, all those things, police brutality. Those people said nothing, sometimes out of fear. Those were the people that Dr. King was talking about. Those were the people who stayed silent because, honestly, it wasn't important enough for them to say something. They were afraid to sacrifice. Dr. King had a long legacy of sacrifice. He sacrificed his very life. But even before he sacrificed his life, he sacrificed one of the most important things in his life, which was time with his family. He missed out on so many milestones with his children because he felt he had a duty to help all children. Dr. King even sacrificed his very freedom. He was arrested because he refused to be silent about what he thought was important. Even in the midst of being in prison in Birmingham and away from his family and all those he loved, he said this, but more basically, I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their "thus saith the Lord" far beyond the boundaries of their hometowns, and just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco-Roman world, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. Dr. King refused to stay silent. His house was bombed, his family was threatened, his very life was threatened, but yet and still, he marched on. He continued to make noise. He continued to make waves. He loved his family with all of his heart, with all of his being. But many times he had to leave them. Why? He knew that he had to provide a better life for his children. He had to challenge and change the system. Dr. King called on others to act, to stand up, to refuse to be silent about important things. How can we today do any less? Yes, we're quick to respond to the latest internet sensation, But how often do we sustain those campaigns? How often do we follow through with the hashtags we post? We get fired up in an election year about who our elected leaders are going to be, but once they're in office, do we follow through? Do we continue to hold their feet to the fire, or do we become silent? At the summer of 2020, at the height of this pandemic, and following the death of George Floyd in police custody, we all saw the hashtags, Black Lives Matter, defund the police. Those were the slogans of the moment. But how many of us were actually doing the work to ensure that Black lives really did matter? How many of us were actually trying to make sure that bad police officers were held accountable for their actions? How many of us were really ready to get uncomfortable and stand up for what was important? Or were we silent in the face of what we said we thought was important once the hashtags stopped trending? Did we keep it up? Or once it blew over, as so many people did we forget about it and go on to the next thing? Dr. King didn't do the catchy slogans. He just refused to stay silent about important things, even when it cost him personally. How many people can honestly say that after all Dr. King faced, that they, in his shoes, would have kept going? Spending time away from your family, missing out on birthdays, anniversaries, just simple time with your loved ones. How many of us can say, yeah, I would have kept going? Being followed, being surveilled by law enforcement, being stopped for no reason, being threatened. How many of us can say, we would have kept going? Yeah, I would have. How many of us can truly say that's what we would have done? Or would we have retreated back into our own world and said, let somebody else handle that. I have a family to protect. Dr. King made up in his mind about what he thought was important enough that he couldn't stay silent. He knew things were getting uncomfortable, but he continued to speak out about what he felt was important. Some things didn't affect him personally, but he felt injustice anywhere was a threat to justice everywhere. Silence for him was not an option. So we talked about how far Dr. King went in face of injustice. He said silence was not an option for him. But what about you? What will you do when faced with that decision? Would you be willing to sacrifice your reputation, your friendships, your freedom, and potentially your very life to stand up for what was just and right? How far are you willing to go? That, my dear friends, is a question only you can answer. We each have to decide what is so important to us that we can't remain silent. What will finally make you move? Thank you to each of you for listening, and God bless all of you.
I think she deserves a little bit more than that. Can you hear me? Is this on? Mic check 1, 2. There we go. She deserves a little bit more than that. You don't have to stand up, but give her what she deserves. Thank you so much, Judge Thomas, for that. Yes, we do have some self-reflection to do for sure. Are y'all having a good time so far as we celebrate Dr. King? You sleepy? Y'all all right? Good, good. All right, we're going to keep going. We're going to have some music now. We're going to have a solo by Mitch Brantley. He's going to come in from the back. He is going to give us What a Wonderful World. Give him a round of applause. so much for that. All right, it's time to honor some students and some community folks. So we're going to first kick things off with Jamila Brown Coleman. She is going to introduce to us the creative contest winners. So she's going to announce those. And she is the MLK Commemorative Committee member. And this may be adults as well. I'm not quite sure who she's going to honor. You ready? Oh, you're on this side of me. Okay.
This year's Martin Luther King Jr. Commemorative Competition was open to high school students as well as MCC students. Students could submit an essay, poem, or any type of creative project of their choice from the theme, "Don't Be Silent About What Is Important," from Dr. Martin Luther King's quote, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." For the sake of time, we are unable to allow the students to share their submissions. However, you can view them on MCC's webpage at meridiancc.edu/MLK. The winners for the high school category were first place, receiving $300, Maya Shook, for her poem, "Thy Human Tongue." Second place, receiving $200, was Jamarcus Towner for his poem, "Don't Be Silent About What Is Important." Third place, receiving $100, is Dankira Holiday for her essay, "Hear Us." These students are Meridian High School students, and they were unable to be with us today, but we will make sure that they receive their awards. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up. Okay, Maya. Congratulations, Maya. First place, and she receives $300. Congratulations. Thank you, Ms. McQuarley, for allowing the students to come and be a part of the program. The winners for the college category were first place, receiving $300, Alexandra Rangel for her video, "It Starts With Me." Second place, $200 for Ashley Pinion for her painting, "A Dream." And third place, receiving $100, Jacob Vance for his fictional letter from Dr. King to his wife, Coretta King. Please come forward and receive your award. Congratulations, Ashley.
Thank you.
And congratulations, Jacob. Please take the time to view these students' winning submissions. Again, MCC's webpage at meridiancc.edu/MLK. Thank you to Meridian and Lauderdale County Public School District for allowing these students to participate in this celebration honoring Dr. King's legacy.
All right, that was a great presentation. Now we have another one. We're gonna talk about some scholarship presentation. So we're gonna ask a member of the Young family to come up. And it is the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated Founders Day. You know, Greek love here, so give her a little extra love because of that. But she is going to introduce to you all and give the presentation for the MLK Program Scholarships.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here, as I feel like, as we have spoken about family, I am a part of this family. I grew up here in these halls. My mother taught here for many years. And I want to say thank you to MCC, its faculty, its staff, the Dr. King Committee for allowing the young family to be a part of this program and allowing us to remain a part of this family. I feel as if I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to acknowledge that although Dr. King is the trailblazer that we are here to honor today, I'd like to ask you all to just give me 3 seconds of silence for our own local trailblazer that we lost last night, Dr. Reverend Charles Johnson. Thank you. Dr. Huebner, I appreciate everything that you do for us. And I also want to say that Reverend Thompson, sir, you can pray for me any day. If you all didn't hear his prayer or listen to it, I recommend that you do so because it was extremely powerful. It was extremely motivating and moving. And then when we moved to Dr. Huebner with his comments and my fellow colleague from the youth court bench, Judge Thomas, when she spoke about silence, that has never been anything that anyone has associated with me. But I would like to remind you that our lives do end the day we become silent and remain silent. I too would like to challenge all of you all, just like Judge Thomas did, and ask that you not treat this like you treat your typical New Year's resolution. Don't let it end by the end of January. Come together and make our community whole again. Dr. Huebner told you, one of the quotes from Dr. King told you, only love can drive out hate. Meridian is at a point where we need to come together, Reverend Thompson. We need to take our community back and love each other. No matter who you are, we've got to come together. And we've got to accept the fact that we should not be judged at all by the color of our skin, but we must dig deep into the dream of Dr. King and do so only according to the content of our character. On behalf of the Charles and Doretha Young Scholarship, the Young family, and in my siblings' absence, I would like to present these scholarships to these 3 worthy recipients. If I could get you all to come forward, please, as I call your name. Emily Smith. Tina Dukes. And Lakeisha McFarland. Charles Young family and the Charles and Doretha Young Scholarship, I would like to present this to you. Ms. Smith, thank you. Ms. Dukes as well, thank you. And Ms. McFarland, thank you as well. Again, I thank you all for your time and for your attendance, and I want to say to these students, forge ahead and do your best. Education is where we know we all need to be at this point, because education is what's going to get us where we need to be. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that presentation, and congrats to all the recipients thus far. We are still giving awards out or scholarships and different other things. So our next person coming up will be Deborah Nettles. She is going to present to Melba Clark Payne the Billy C. Beal Award. So can you give her a round of applause as she comes forward?
We are in the midst of a good time, definitely. Professional, encourager, leader, friend. These are words used to describe Mr. Billy Beal. A native of Meridian, Mr. Billy Beal earned a degree from Loyola University of Chicago and a Master of Science degree in Library Science from Simmons College in Boston. After completion of his academic studies, Mr. Beal returned to Meridian. He enjoyed a long career at Meridian Community College, beginning as circulation librarian and ending after 38 years as Associate Vice President of Learning Resources. He was an active member of the American Library Association and a lifelong member of the Mississippi Library Association. And if you ever visited the MCC library, you knew who Mr. Beal was. And he made sure that you knew the library was for studying and not for playing and not for talking. I remember that about him. Interested in arts and culture, Mr. Beal believed in the preservation of history, and he supported the historical significance of organizations, buildings, and sites relevant to Reconstruction and civil rights. During Freedom Summer 1964, Mr. Beal compiled information that was later used to document the history of America's struggle for civil liberties. He served on the Meridian Redevelopment Authority and the Meridian Historical Foundation, now known as the Riley Center. He was also a founding member of the Meridian Council for the Arts and a former member of the Meridian Symphony Orchestra Board. A member of St. Joseph Catholic Church, he served as organist and member of the Liturgical Committee. Mr. Beal strongly advocated the pursuit of higher education, and he mentored many students in research skills necessary to attain higher degrees. He was a true trailblazer, and hence the name the Billy C. Beal Trailblazer Award. This year's recipient of the Billy C. Beal Award is well known in the community. A graduate of Rust College, he holds a master's degree in secondary education with a concentration in English from the University of West Alabama, with further studies at the University of Memphis and the Northwestern University in Boston. She is a retired educator with over 30 years of teaching experience with Meridian Public Schools. After retirement, she found her calling as co-founder and licensed funeral director of the Cedric D. Clark Memorial Funeral Home and founding editor and publisher of the Unifam Church Letter, which is a local newspaper catering to the news of community and area churches. This year's recipient is a charter member of the Meridian Negro Business and Professional Women's Club. She is past president of the Meridian chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, former president of the Lauderdale County Democratic Party, former delegate to the 2004 Democratic National Convention, lifetime member of the NAACP, Meridian NAACP Woman of the Year, co-founder of Mahogany Performing Arts, and the Meridian Toastmasters Club. I could go on, but for time's sake, I will keep that short at that part. In addition to her civic and community involvement, she is an active member of the First Union Missionary Baptist Church, where she serves as Sunday school teacher, member of the Education Committee, and member of the Scholarship Committee. In her spare time, she enjoys writing plays and short stories, playing Scrabble and solitaire, and watching old movies. The widow of Mr. Obie Clark, she is currently married to Mr. Billy R. Payne. She is the mother of one son, the late Mr. Cedric Clark, and one daughter, Miss Tracy Clark Washington of Atlanta, Georgia, and grandmother to 3 grandchildren, Clark Elizabeth, Jason, and Andrew. It is an honor and a privilege to announce the recipient of the 2022 Billy C. Beal Trailblazer Award, Mrs. Melba Clark Payne. Please put your hands together and help me congratulate her as we welcome her to the stage. And I'd like to read the award. It reads, Meridian Community College Billy C. Beal Award in recognition of the talent and effort you have contributed to the betterment of our committee. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to receive this award. My first thought when Deborah called and asked if I was coming to the Dr. King program, I said, yes, I usually come, and I do. I've been coming almost for as long as this program has taken place. So when she told me I was receiving an award, I said, really? Because it was then when she explained what it was all about that I said, I am really honored. Billy Bill and I met each other, I can't tell how many years ago, but when I organized the Mahogany Performing Arts Community Theater, it was Billy Bill that provided the first place for us to hold our productions, and I was very grateful for that. The last time that I was here was at such a program, and he invited me to come to the library, which I did. And I was truly amazed at how he had just put such wonderful works on display. I could tell from what he had put that he loved what he did. When I was teaching at Carver, I had a unit on how to read a newspaper. And as a culminating activity, we did our own little newspaper. And so we did some interviews. And one of the interviews we did was with the late Charles Young, who I understand is a cousin of Billy's. So I said, Charles, what is the key to success? He said, Melba, you've got to love it. And so Billy Bill loved what he did. And I am so honored to get this award from someone like myself who loves what I do. I never went to work in the 30 years that I taught that I did not love going to work, and I love my students. So what does one do in community service? That person has to love what he or she does. And so thank you so much for giving me this award. I see two of my students sitting on the podium, and they know that my years meant that I loved them and I loved what I did. So I have a presentation as well. Christmas before last, my youngest grandson, Andrew, presented me with this copy of my works. In this 700-page book are a collection of my poems, my short stories, and my novels. And so I want to present this to the library in honor of thank you so much. In honor of Mr. Bill. Included in this present is an article I wrote in 1989 that was in culmination of my graduating from the Jump Start program. And the title of this essay is Graduation, Let's Do It Again and Again and Again.
Oh my word, what a precious gift. Did you sign it?
Title of, yes, I did. I signed it and put a note in it. Also, as a librarian, I want to present to the college. I did not write anything in here, but one of my former students sent me a copy of this book, Visa Hersey. And she said, Miss Melba, she calls me Aunt Marge, I know you would enjoy it. It's called Your Legacy. And any student of any age would enjoy reading this book because it is truly a marvelous presentation of African American legacy. So I have ordered 20 books, 15 of which I'm presenting to the Meridian Public Schools, and I want every elementary and middle school to have a copy of this book. Dr. Amy Carter and I will be meeting after Tuesday for me to make this presentation to her. But I would also like the college to have a copy. Thank you again. And as the late Charles Young said, I love it.
All right, Ms. Melba, I love you, and I just met you today. Just a beautiful person, seems to be inside and out. Did y'all have a good time? Good. Well, I have definitely been blessed. It was an honor to be here. We're going to wrap things up here real soon. We're going to have Lowell Martin come up in just a bit. But I want to say thank you for allowing me to represent WTOK for this amazing event. I'm very aware of the fact that I stand on the shoulders of many, especially Dr. King and his movement. So again, I am definitely honored to be a part of this presentation. Hopefully we'll see each other again, including more people around the same time next year in honor of Dr. King and Dr. King and according to what our speaker mentioned in terms of don't be silent, reflect as you leave here today and hopefully try to do better. Let's all have a goal to kind of move more so towards his goal and progress further. So again, thanks again. Hopefully you wake up with me dark and early, but if you don't, hopefully I'll see you around. But thanks so much. I'm going to bring up Lowell Martin, who's going to give us the closing remarks.
I know many of you were thinking, who is that man lurking in the back? Thank you so much for being here. Would members of the MLK committee please stand up? I want y'all to give them a round of applause because they have worked very, very hard on this. So I'm so glad that they're here. Before we end, we have a few tokens of appreciation that we would like to give out, if you do not mind. The first will go to Reverend Thompson, if you would. Ms. McKenzie. Judge Thomas. Thank you so much. Let's see. And Ms. Johnson. And not that I'm asking her to sing for her meal, but we have the token, but we would also like for her to lead us in We Shall Overcome. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it greatly. Do not forget about Monday, Dr. King's day, and it is a day on and not a day off. Please remember that. Thank you.